کنفرانس بین المللی 8 مارس روز جهانی زن با حضور رئیس جمهور برگزیده مقاومت خانم مریم رجوی. ارتباط اشرف 3 با 1500 نقطه در 34 کشور. قسمت دوم. سخنرانیهای سروناز چیتساز، امبر، بارونس ورما.
Dear friends, honorable guests, I would like to thank each and every one of you for your participation on this important day. This year, our conference is being held online due to the coronavirus pandemic, and nearly 1,000 points are connected and follow this conference online. This is a joint conference of the Women's Committee of NCRI and the British Committee for Free Iran. I am also delighted and honored that Mrs. Rajavi, President-elect of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, is also present at this conference. On International Women's Day, we always talk about the problems, the violence, and the oppression women are suffering, especially in Iran. However, today, in a short time that I have, I would like to talk about the Iranian women's hopes, their tireless efforts for achieving equality and freedom. With their active presence in all protests and uprising, Iranian women and girls cause fear and panic among the mullahs. They have played a decisive role in all uprising with their presence. Either our sisters who were martyred under savage torture or were hanged, or our sisters who are resisting as a political prisoners in the regime's prison. Some of them have been held captive and tortured for more than 10 years, and the regime did not give them a single day of furlough, even amid the pandemic. They are even deprived of visiting their children and seeing their growth. Nevertheless, they continue their resistance and do not surrender to the regime, while many people do not know them. Let's applaud them. I also want to speak about the mujahideen and defiant women who have been fighting against Iran's misogynist regime for 4 decades. Many have been martyrs, and the rest have continued their struggle. Their bodies were wounded and tortured, but their spirits remained strong. They experienced exile successively, suffered medical sieges, and endured rocket bombs, rocket attacks, and bombardments, but have always been committed to their people's resistance and freedom. Those martyrs and prisoners and these struggling women are the real heroines of human rights and women's rights. Because we all know that freedom and equality are the only answers to all the problems that Iranian society faces, from poverty and discrimination to deprivation of the rights to choose freely. Therefore, we in the Iranian resistance are determined to achieve these two, namely freedom and equality. On International Women's Day, I would also like to emphasize it is an honor that there is a movement in the world at the forefront of the struggle for democratic change in Iran. And the woman is leading this global movement for regime change and the establishment of freedom and democracy for the Iranian people. She is Meriem Rejui, whose names and presence have been a political, social, cultural, and ideological challenge to the ruling mullahs. She is an inspiration for me and all the women who are resisting the mullahs' misogynist regime. She is the one who leads a revolution of hope and removes every weakness and despair with her miraculous message. We can and we must. Indeed, the freedom of Iranian people will be achieved with such determination.
Let me tell you how privileged I feel to be with you to address women who have already chosen to challenge by being at the forefront of the battle. Yes, I am talking about my sisters in the Iranian resistance movement, those who embody a huge capacity of women shouldering the most difficult tasks and for taking the highest risks to liberate all Iranian women who are suffering under gender apartheid and for so long have prevailed under the cleric regime, standing up against misogyny, speaking out against oppression, and fighting for equality. These women are capable of doing this because they have learned to liberate themselves under gender apartheid. They have put themselves above and before everyone else to make sure that they are the voice to be heard. They have put aside the self-disbelief that many women in our world are accustomed to and have taken on the highest and most serious responsibilities at decision-making within the resistance. For decades, their persistence, they have sent a clear message to the Iranian regime and the mullahs. The situation for women in Iran is unacceptable. Women have chosen to challenge, and they will not give up until Iran is free. Despite the problems, the misfortunes of the Iranian people under such a dictatorship that is hard to bear, and with such bravery, women in the Iranian resistance have fought hard for the future of Iranian women and Iran. These women, who are now the role models for millions of Iranian women, have a role model much brighter, much braver for them to adopt to. She is a woman of extraordinary courage, supported by women of extraordinary courage, who has chosen to challenge decades ago. She's a woman remarkable, with perseverance, with honesty and selflessness. She has been an inspiration to not just all Iranians, but to women across the world who are yearning for freedom, for human rights, for democracy, for social justice, and most importantly, for gender equality. Under her leadership, women in the Iranian resistance, those whom I've described a few moments ago, have not only achieved gender parity, they occupy the leading positions of this most democratic movement, which spans from Iran to Europe, to the United States, and of course to Ashraf III in Albania. Our dearest sister, the great inspirational figure, a great leader, Mrs. Meriem Rejui, the president-elect of the National Council of the Resistance of Iran.
Choose to challenge. That's the message for today. It's a delight to be able to share my views on why challenge matters to bring about equality and to reflect on what is taking place for the women of Iran. Women everywhere are challenging their society in different ways. It may be on education, on rights in the law, health rights. Different progress, of course, is vastly different in different parts of the world. But when I look at what the women of Iran have had to endure in terms of their rights, their health, their roles in society in general, I realize how much they have to endure, how limited their rights are, and how brave they are when they object. Looking at the video earlier before some of these speeches, it was remarkable to see how brave those women were. In Iran, women have to endure a religious regime that gives them very few rights. They do not have the freedom to choose how to live their lives. They do not have the same access to the law or to welfare benefits to survive. The freedoms to make our own choices, which we women in the West take for granted, is hardly available to the women in Iran. And in Iran, it is so much more difficult to challenge the regime. Difficult, illegal, and above all, dangerous. But it is fascinating to see how the women of Iran do fight back. Like today's motto, they choose to challenge, not just today on International Women's Day, but every day. Iran will only be free when the women of Iran are free. Life is complicated and sometimes hard. But within that, the people of a country are different to its regime, and never more so than Iran. What an immensely complicated time for the country. What an opportunity, if it can be got right, for equality. What a journey to go on. So well done to the women of Iran who are indeed choosing to challenge. Thank you.